if you're not making mistakes. If you're not saying, wow, I screwed that one up, or I could have done that better somehow, then you're not living, then you're not doing something. Nobody goes through anything without saying, you know what, I messed up. That's parenthood, being a teacher, being a content creator, whatever you're doing. It's just learning from that.
Welcome to the RV Queens podcast, where adventure meets the open road. I'm your host, Charlie Grace, rolling through life 1 mile at a time, sharing stories, interviews, tips, and real talk about RV living, travel, and the freedom to chase your own version of home. Whether you're a full-time RVer, a weekend warrior, or just RV curious, you're in the right place. So buckle up, grab your favorite drink, and let's hit the road together.
My guest today is a fantastic friend. I'm super excited to have her on. It is Inspired Travels with my friend, Patty. Patty, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Charlie Grace, for having me.
This is great because you and I have been in the RV industry for quite a while, and you have had a lot of podcast experience, a lot of brand experience. You are a wealth of knowledge, as I say. And we've got a couple questions here. I think we need to go through some of these and break it down. But tell me just a little bit about your background and tell me a little bit about your podcast.
So my background is I was a teacher for 20 years, decided to quit my job. I had moved out to Las Vegas with my husband. During COVID, we decided that we were just going to get in an RV and take off and travel the country. My husband, having been in the entertainment industry his entire life, decided we'd start a YouTube channel and, we'd go create content. I wasn't so sure about that idea, honestly. And then about 9 months in, we were approached by RV Life to do the RV Life podcast, which we started. That was 3 years ago, actually. That was amazing. I honestly didn't think I wanted any parts of doing that because it was just something else, but I truly loved it. And then in the summer of this year, we sort of went our separate ways. And in September, I started my own podcast, and Inspired Travels with Patty is now mine, and I get to do whatever I choose to do with it. So I've been in the RV industry going on 5 years. I can't believe it.
I know. Time flies. I feel like it was just yesterday we were hanging out, talking about the podcast, walking around the Hershey RV show or the Florida RV Super Show, where all these wonderful things are happening. And it's a small world, when you start in that RV world, especially in content and RV content, because it's a very small niche when you start talking to people about this. So I want to know, you've got so many great lessons learned. Oh my gosh. You've had the #1 podcast in the RV industry. That's huge. That's a big thing. And transitioning now into Inspired Travels, which is even more exciting, I think, because it gives you more ideas of not just RV, but any way of traveling, which I love, airplanes, driving, walking, whatever you want to call it. Just, it's all right there. But I do want to talk to you about the moment that you decided, not only are we going to do this, but now we're going to make money on the road and we're going to create content. That's a big statement. That's a huge statement, because I know for me, there's a difference between, I love this product, to, let me tell you all about my life. How did you feel about that?
I'll be honest, there wasn't a great plan. And looking back now, I'm just total transparent, total honesty, did not have a great plan, did not know really what it was going to cost. The idea of making money from a YouTube channel, I already knew that from past experience that those weren't overnight things. Like, you don't start a YouTube channel or social media or a podcast and expect you're just going to make money. So I knew that going in, but it was scary. Just totally honest. For months, for a long time, it was scary because I wasn't sure how we were going to pay the bills, how we're going to make money. I just had to believe and trust that it was going to work out. And the big thing was knowing this could take time.
Right. And making money on the road. We talked about the podcast, making money on the road, RV Queens. Becoming an RV content creator is not an overnight success story. And we need to just talk about that for a minute, because this is really important. And I think you and I are in complete alignment when it comes to this. So when you started going in that direction, what was like your first steps? Did you Were you one of those people who start pitching brands, or how did you talk to brands and say, hey, I'm interested in working with you?
Well, so it started before that. We were, like I said, living in a house in Las Vegas. Um, it was during COVID, and my husband, Dan, having been in the entertainment industry, he was still kind of trying to convince me that going on the road was a good idea because he called me up to his office and said, let's just sell everything and get in an RV. And for people who don't know my story, I've told this story a number of times, but I had been in an RV up to that point, like for 7 nights. That was my RV experience. And they were separate weekends. We go to this campground for a weekend. It was great, but that was my RV experience. So when he said this, it was just out of left field. So it was, I had all the questions. How are we going to do it? What are we going to do? How are we going to make money? So one of the things we started doing while we were in Las Vegas was going out and filming what there was to do in the Las Vegas area. Now, for people who think of Las Vegas and just think about the Las Vegas Strip, there's a lot more to Las Vegas than that. So just to let people know. So we started going out and doing content. We went to Boulder City and found this cool restaurant, and we created content. And we come back to our house one day, and there was somebody that was staying with us. She had lost her apartment. She was staying with us, and she had a friend over, and he saw all the filming equipment because Dan had all the big equipment. And he said, "What are you doing?" And Dan said, "Oh, we were just doing some filming." And he said, "Show me." Dan would usually not show somebody raw footage, before it was edited. And he did. It turns out this guy was an executive for the CW network. And he said, "We need this." And so before we ever left Las Vegas, we did a 4-part series of episodes that were on the CW. And we got paid some for that, which was just mind blowing. It was very cool. But it also let me know that there was content that people wanted, needed, they were looking for. Because as much as people think, oh, overnight sensation, you're confident, you just are like everything just works easy. No, there's this fear of is it going to work? There's the fear of, is the content I'm creating something that somebody wants to hear? It was a big step for me seeing and understanding that this was content because my whole thing is always been about inspiring people to live life fully. And I think you do that by getting out, having experiences, seeing things, meeting people, traveling. And so that's how it started. I don't know that we pitched. It was kind of just given to us. So that was the start of it.
I love that. That's a great story. I think that's priceless because things happen. We can talk about law of attraction. We can talk about lots of different things out there in the world, but it happened to come your way. You just happened to be there. And sometimes it is those chance encounters or moments. And I think people love authenticity. I think in today's day and age, in the age of AI, I think this is going to be a very big discussion coming up is this authentic content? Is this authentically coming from a person and not someone on AI? So these are things that I just think in the back of my head how it's going to come out. All right, so I got a couple big topics. We're going to hit them sort of one by one. We're going to give like some, little highlights of what we're doing. But I'm going to talk about the foundations because we talked about your foundation of how you started and what got you on the road. and how you sort of started looking at content. So I'm going to ask you just a few series of questions and we can try to go through these. But when did you land your first RV or travel related brand deal? Now I'm talking brand deal. So it's a little different from CW. More like I'm thinking something that's in the RV industry itself. So when did that happen for you?
One of the first things that happened was meeting guy named Patrick, who was from RV Life. And we met in Albuquerque at the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta. And I just introduced myself. We just talked. I had no ulterior motive. I knew who he was. I knew about the product. I used their product all the time. So very much believed in it. But I was just making a connection to a guy. And that was it. And from there, we started talking. He said, I'd love for you to travel and speak at our event. So we went to Seattle for one of their events. We were affiliates for them. And that relationship led from one thing to another because it was 6 or 8 months later when he said, "We're thinking about starting a podcast. I believe the 2 of you would be ideal." And I don't know that, so let me back up. I know that it just wasn't about the fact that we had experience. Like, it wasn't just about Dan's experience in the entertainment industry. It was about the connection, and he made that very clear to us. We had a lot of conversation about the fact that we were authentic, that, we believed in the product, we were caring, we never pitched. I actually hate that word. Hate's a strong word. The word pitch just has such a negative connotation to me. And whenever I do any training or mentoring around these topics, the first thing I want to do is take the word pitch out of somebody's vocabulary because there's a sense to it, there's a meaning to it, there's a vibe to it. Call it what you want. So I try and take that out. But that was the first big deal, brand deal that we got, and that one thing led to another with that company.
Here's a new word I'm using. Ready? I don't use the word pitch either. I use the word care. And I'll tell you why. I care about that product or that company. I care that that product or that company is seen in a positive light, and that product is seen among other people that they're able to utilize. There are some very amazing things out there that I would care for my people that I'm talking to know about. And when you talk to people like that, I don't pitch. I've really never been a person who can pitch. That's not my thing either. I'm much more in relationships and talking to people. As you said, it took a while. You met them here, and then time passed and things happened. And maybe that's a little old school, and that's okay. I'm okay with that because I would rather have a relationship with that person, with that company, with that brand, so that I feel as comfortable as they feel as comfortable with me. That is key. It's definitely a relationship-based situation, because just because you love that product, maybe you don't want to, maybe their working is a little different, or who knows how that whole thing's going to go down. So I think you need a little time, I call it date the rate or date the brand, whatever you want to call it.
That's a great way to put it, because you're saying all the top things. Authentic, number one. I'm a teacher, so I like highlighting things. The teacher in me, like, reinforce ideas. But it is like dating. You meet somebody, you're head over heels in love, like that first initial wow. And then you get to know them, and some things work out and some things don't. And so it is like dating. You really do need a relationship with that company, with that brand. And that the other thing is, it does take time. And people always say, well, how long? And I know that's probably one of your questions. That is a unknown. That is just not. There are some relationships that took a year to develop, that until something came of it. There are relationships that I have with companies that we stay in touch. Nothing's quite fit yet. There are relationships with companies that all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is the right time. Something came up and there's a fit. So yeah, I like that. Relationships,
Yeah,
dating.
Absolutely. Okay, so, as you're getting to know the brands and you're talking about things, people always ask me, but I don't have 1 million followers yet. I just started. I only have 100 followers or whatever that might be, and any kind of Instagram or YouTube or whatever it might be. Is there some magic number out there that you believe in working with these different brands that they're looking for?
Absolutely not. And when we talk about brands, it is as different as going out and meeting guys, going along with your dating analogy. There are some brands that absolutely want the numbers, they want the engagement, they want certain things. I'm not going to say there's not. I will say, in my experience, I would talk to a brand and in my mind thought, I'm not big enough, I'm not good enough, whatever. I don't have the numbers, I don't have the engagement. I had that in my head. They didn't care. It didn't matter to them. When I got the deal with RV Life, we were just starting out. We didn't have the numbers. We didn't have traction. We weren't even on the road for a year at that point. So I there are people, yes, that will care about numbers. If you don't have the numbers, then you don't pitch them. But I wouldn't want a content creator to believe it was about the numbers without checking it for themselves. Don't believe what somebody else says. Don't believe what you hear the experts say. Just, create the relationship and you'll find out if those numbers matter.
In particularly the RV industry, this is my little statistic. This is a Charlie Grace statistic, okay? Nobody else has this. I just want to make sure everybody knows where I'm pulling this number from. I see a turnover every 3 years, okay? Now I'm going to explain what this means because this involves content creators too. This is really interesting, and I watched this. So, a person gets that RV, they're just stoked, they're really excited, they're going out there, they're, I'm really excited. And it may not hit them immediately, and they don't have great success immediately. And they might have taken all these amazing trips to the Grand Canyon and Yellowstone and wherever it's been, and they come back with all this great content, and they're so excited to do it, and then it still doesn't hit. Like they're expecting some success. We talk about that. But as a quote-unquote non-content creator, every 3 years, we get new people buying RVs. That's a 3-year cycle. You buy it, dream trip, sits there, and then that 3rd year, they have to decide, are they going to keep the RV, trade in for a new one? Where are they going to go? So we're always constantly getting new, viewers, new content creators. And for the people that stay in it, as you said, it took a little while. There's certain things that just take time. That's where I tend to see a little more of the payoff. And today I just got notice of actually 2 very established RV YouTubers that will be leaving to go do other pursuits, which is fine. And that's totally part of the whole storyline is, we started here, we accomplished this, and we're now at the end. And that's their story. And I'm really happy for them. But that leaves room for other people to jump into. And that's important. So it's not an oversaturated thing. It's just people have timelines and this is how it works. So knowing what you know now, segueing into an interesting question here, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself when you started? What mistakes have you learned in starting?
That's a great question. And I'm thinking of it from different angles. I think that because my sort of sales started some 14 years ago, I was in network marketing. And I see a lot of similarities and a lot of things that have helped me. So I got into network marketing. I was taught a lot of things that I did that felt, for lack of a better word, just yicky, really icky. And so I stopped doing those and started more toward the relationship marketing and just creating relationships, not forcing it, not pushing it, not having an agenda. So when I started in the RV world and not pitching brands, trying to collaborate, I think is a better word, with companies, with brands, with products, services. I had some of that knowledge, some of the things that I learned the hard way and was able to bring into that. That said, did I make mistakes? Yes. What was my biggest mistake? I can't think. What I will say to your listeners is, if you're not making mistakes, if you're not saying, wow, I screwed that one up, or I could have done that better somehow, then you're not living, then you're not doing something. Nobody goes through anything without saying, you know what, I messed up. That's parenthood, being a teacher, being a content creator, whatever you're doing. It's just learning from that. And so, were there mistakes I made? I think some of the mistakes I made was not having as clear an agreement, whether that's a contract, whatever you want to call it not being as clear as I would have wanted or should have made it. That said, that I still don't try to create a contract that is so ironclad, because that it doesn't exist. What it always comes down to is who's got the most money, who's got the bigger lawyer. The contract is just, your puppy. The contract is just a a piece of paper that is up to interpretation. So even that's probably my biggest lesson. And even having had that happen, I can't get so stuck on it and paranoid that I'm going to avoid any possible future issues because it's just not realistic.
Right. And at the end of the day, the contract is the contract is the contract. It is good to have things as far as expectations clearly written out on both sides. When you get to that point, I think that's important. But you're right. There's always got to be a little room for creativity and working things out. And maybe they want to expand the scope. Maybe they want to add more things to it down the road. So you gotta give it a little bit of wiggle room and let go from there. So good call out. I like that because you're right. If you're not making failures, you're not putting yourself out there. You're not really going there. I love this. Okay, let's go on to our next topic. Are you ready? Positioning and personal brand. Now, I want you to think about this because this is interesting. Everyone has a unique character. Everyone has a unique brand. And when I ask someone about my brand, the first thing they always mention, what do you think? This is fun. Take a guess.
What they mentioned about you and your brand?
Yeah.
I think you're funny. You're real. You're funny.
She's funny. She's a spitfire. She's got that bright red hair. You can find her anywhere. That's sort of like the joke. Is like you could find me anywhere in a crowd. That's not always what I think I would want someone to say about me, which I think is interesting, right? So you have this idea of how you want to be presented and thought of, but when you ask others, that perception really becomes more of your brand than you've ever thought before. So that's where I'm going to come on this one. So when it comes to your brand, how do you define it? How do you explain it? How do you put it out there for others to know then, what they're going to get?
And again, that is a great question that I learned in a strange kind of way. So when I was in network marketing, I'm going to go back to that because that's where I've learned so much. I got to a point, so I never, ever wanted to be in front of a camera at that point. Like, no way. Did not want to be on stage. People would say, but you were a teacher. And I'd say, yes, I taught kids. I didn't even want to be a back to school night with the parents, just totally, like that's what it was. So when I was sort of pushed into being on camera, being in front of an audience, because that's just what we were doing. It was certainly in Dan's wheelhouse. It was who he had been forever. So I was pushed into it. And I say that in a way, but I'm so grateful because when I got out there and I thought, okay, this is what I'm providing my audience, my listeners with. But what people started to say was, wow, you're so authentic. You're so real. I love hearing your stories. You share the challenges, but you talk about how you got up and did it. So how motivational and inspirational I was. And honestly, I just went, wait, what, me? Like that just, I didn't know who they were talking about because I didn't realize that's what I was doing. And from there, I decided, yes, that is who I want to be. That is what I want. So for people looking to find their brand, to find who that person is, what they're, what they're putting out there, sometimes it is great to know that for yourself. But I did this activity one time with a group of people in a networking event, and we all wrote down words that described the other people in the room. And we knew each other pretty well. And then that person would take this piece of paper and say, oh, people see me as motherly, or they see me as authentic or inspiring. And you really take it in from a different perspective. And I think that's a great thing to know what you want to put out into the world as to who you are, but also ask other people. I think that's a great, ask people what they see.
Eye-awakening to me, when you think you perceive yourself as this, but people see you as something else, and you're like, okay, what are the three things when you hear my name, when you hear my voice, when you see me in person? One of the stories, I'll never forget this as long as I live. I was at an event and sitting at a campfire with another group of people hanging out. And it was a long day. I was exhausted. We all know how these shows can be. And you just need to just take a beat and sit down. And this gentleman came up to me and goes, oh, I thought she'd be more funny in person.
Wow.
I'm like looking, I'm going, and it dawned on me the expectations of the audience. It dawned on me the expectations of, I may never see this person ever again. And that one moment is what they're going to remember for who knows how long. I just politely looked at him. I said, honestly, I'm just a little tired, been a long day. I said, I'd love to sit down and talk with you. You have any, let's change the subject. But I took it as, you're right. I get it. The expectation of someone, they have this idea of you. And so I learned, this is another key lesson I learned from an RV content creator perspective is you're on. When you're in public, you're on. Whatever they perceive you to be, that's what you are. Now, I'm me no matter what. I'm okay. But when I have moments where I do need to reflect and just take a break, I need to cocoon myself, go back to my RV, gather myself, give myself a little rest. Don't do it in public because that's not what they're expecting.
I was standing in line in a buffet line. I was at an event, and literally the former president of Freightliner, who had loved the podcast and listened, and I'm saying, something. I mentioned something about, something kind of personal, and he's like, yeah, I know. And then I'd say something else, and he'd finish the statement. Like he knew I wrote in a journal with a pencil. And he's like, yeah, I know. And I turned around and looked at him, and he said, I listened to the podcast. He said, I really listen. And then I have a really good friend of mine that listens to every podcast, and he will bring up things that I said that I don't realize I said. So we do put ourselves out there. We are in public. I do think we have to be aware of that. So if you want to be a content creator, if you want to keep your kids private, keep them private. It doesn't mean that's going to necessarily work all the time if you're out in public. There's a balance there, and it's understanding that balance. So some people may or may not know, but a couple years ago, my husband got ill. He went into a hospital. He is in a nursing home, and people were asking what's going on. Like they wanted to know. And I couldn't just go public on social media for various reasons. I didn't just put it out publicly, the details. And somebody who's not a content creator, not in the, just does not produce content, said, well, it's really none of their business. And I'm like, no, you're wrong. I made it my business when I put myself out there. And most, if not all of these people are asking because they're concerned, not because they're trying to be nosy. So as a content creator, we need to know that. We are on when we walk outside. I also feel like there are times that I can, within the RV industry, I could get together with my fellow content creators and just let down. And it's not a matter of you're not being yourself. You are funny, but you're not like that 24/7. Like imagine that. You're just not always. So I think it helps us know that we can just be. And if that is, at the events, like it's exhausting. I'm just sitting there quietly. It's a lot of work. I love it. It's great. I'm just recovered from Hershey, and we're getting ready to go into Tampa. So I'll be recovered by then. Yeah. But it is. And that is something to consider, that I want to be, I always strive to be authentically me on camera, on talking to somebody, but we all have our moments. We all have our times where it's like, not today. I'm not feeling upbeat.
It's a thing, but I appreciate everyone listening. I appreciate meeting people in person. I appreciate people taking the time. And I would say I do ussies, instead of selfies, I'll do ussies with people, and I'll even use my camera because I appreciate people that take the time to watch, take the time to listen. I think it's being a part of their day and their world that makes an impact on them. So as a creator, it's something that, we have to understand that triangle of, the musician and the audience and, how that whole thing goes. So it's a big deal.
Thanks for tuning into the RV Queens podcast. I hope you found inspiration for your next adventure, on or off the road. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with us on social media at RV Queens Community for behind-the-scenes stories and travel tips. Until next time, keep your wheels turning and your spirit wild. We'll see you down the road.